welcome to the third podcast of Agile on Air. In this section, we're building on our series of building agile teams. So this is number 3. We've already covered why you should do it, cross-functional teams, co-location. In this session, we are going to cover small teams and possibly long-lived teams.
Right.
There we go. Two sections in one. So
I was just wondering whether it's worth noting that we don't generally wear the same clothes all the time. This is actually several episodes recorded on the same day.
Yes. Although actually, after the joys of putting on weight in lockdown, I don't actually have many shirts that fit anymore.
Right.
So you'll see me either in this one or the white one for the time being.
I've very much optimised my wardrobe.
Oh, have you?
I think Steve Jobs famously had a wardrobe full of the same jeans and polo neck, didn't he?
Yeah, I used to work with this guy Roger, and every day he came in, he had a black pair of trousers, white shirt, and I started clocking onto this, and I was like, Roger, have you got any other? Do you wear the same trousers every day? He says, no. I've got my wardrobe at home, and there's like 5 pairs of black. It was 10 pairs of black trousers, 10 pairs of shirts. Rotates through in 2 weeks. Everything gets washed, and then it's back to rotation. Same clothes every day.
Excellent. Moving on to small teams.
That would be such a good idea. Then I wouldn't stink, would I?
No,
right,
but
I wouldn't do that.
It's supposed to lower the cognitive load of you in the morning.
No, absolutely. I approve it. I've gone further. I take the Bob Geldof approach, which is I put on the clothes that I find at the end of the bed on the floor. So
yeah, okay, right.
Yes. So,
works at
if
the
you're
weekend.
building agile teams,
We're talking about small teams this time.
We are. So, what is it? The Scrum Guide says at the moment, is it 6 plus or minus 3?
Oh, it changes.
Sometimes
it's
change,
five plus or minus.
Regardless of whether you're off by one
whatever,
or where you take your advice from,
it's small.
we get very similar advice from XP, from other sources that the most effective teams are small teams.
Small teams.
And
Single digits, generally.
Yeah, 2 pizza teams.
Yeah,
whatever you want to call it.
The Amazon 2 pizza team concept.
Which
is a team that can be fed by 2 pizzas.
Yeah,
It'd have to be bloody big pizzas if it was me. I'm a greedy bastard.
The dustbin lids. Yeah. Whatever you want to call it. We maybe it goes from triads because some people believe a structure of 3 people is very effective. Up to 9. Mm-hmm. And then it's not a small team anymore, right?
Well, but what happens after 9?
What do you mean 9's not a small team? That's fine. It's like, the 3 model, that would be a very small team, wouldn't it?
Well, so what would go wrong if you had many more than 3 to 9 people?
Well, I think sometimes you need more than 3 to 9 people, but that's another subject. But generally, the smaller team is it's a large part about trust. So it's when you start to get larger teams, you start to get factions within those teams. It's all about knowing. So really effective teams, everybody knows each other very well, and they know their strengths and weaknesses very well, and they play well as a symbiotic organism. So because they can read each other and read what they're going to do and what the sort of decisions they're going to make.
So in the smaller teams, that's it. You said trust.
Trust is a massive thing. Yeah.
And the trust comes from the personal relationships that we're able to support with the smaller number of people.
Yeah.
Because as a human, I can't have personal relationships with huge numbers of people.
Yep. Interestingly, though, Navy SEAL teams, 16.
16?
Yep.
Okay.
And so very, very high trust environment, obviously. And they're deployed around the world in a unit of 16. I think for some operations, they'll break out into smaller pieces. But, I I think that.
And how many people in the smaller? That might be 4 people.
Yeah, it's 8 or 4. Yeah.
So that's interesting.
Yeah.
And the smaller number of people can more easily have a shared goal.
Yeah.
Once you start to look at more than 14, more than 20,
yeah,
you might start to recognise different priorities and goals.
Yeah.
Well, the other side is just from a practical sense. If you've got a small team and you're having a daily meeting to, so everyone understands what's going on.
Yeah.
If you've got 7 people talking, they take a minute each. That's great. If you've got suddenly 16 people, people start getting bored because a lot of the work doesn't affect them.
Because they don't share a goal with the people they're listening to, right?
And the meeting becomes, exponentially more expensive because the meeting is getting longer in length and there's more people at it.
Yeah, but I think we've talked about this before, about that's if you want to follow the Scrum, go around every single person. What did you do yesterday? What did you do today? Got any blockers? And bam, 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 bam. If you want to do that, then it's going to take a long time with a load of people. If you go and take a more sort of Kanban approach of working through the different, the current stories that are on the board, and talk, and people might be swarming around those stories, then you get a much more succinct view.
Well, hopefully there's twice as much work there. The team's twice as big.
Well, yeah, so you could do, if you've got a very collaborative team where 2 or 3 people are working on each ticket and you've effectively reinvented a scrum of scrums, perhaps, and you might imagine that the 3 people talking about each ticket have just chatted, how are we doing on this morning, before they go into the meeting. But that's a mitigation almost for making the meeting more efficient, because there are more people with more goals.
Yeah, and the other thing is, as teams get bigger, you mentioned earlier they split into factions. People don't care about other people's work. I've had big teams and
so
they might negatively care. They might be annoyed that other people are working on something.
But they kind of should care, right? So it's interesting. I've been reading General Stanley McChrystal's Team of Teams recently, and is saying it's interesting the way they worked with the Apollo mission, and they changed the culture so that there was more flow of information, which seemed more inefficient, so more people were open to more information flows. Now, I get it that sometimes people are just interested in what they're working on, but actually if you're working on a complex system, you shouldn't be. You should be interested in more than just your tunnel vision view of the problem that you're trying to solve. So you do need to be open to other areas and other complexities involved in the product that you're trying to deliver, I think.
And I should be open to collaborating and contributing outside of the piece of work that I'm immediately doing as well. And then I suppose in a larger team, a larger group of people, does it become harder for people to have that sense of shared responsibility? It's a strange thing that a single team with many, many people in, actually, do we just lose the feeling of team?
Yeah, you probably will lose the feeling of team at a certain point, right? But I think you've got to work out, because, all right, so if you've got a product that you're developing that genuinely needs more than just that small team, there is a certain, you'll build up people within that team, and you get to a certain point, and there's a certain point, and maybe it's you start to get into double digits. You go, well, actually, do I need to split the team now? Do I need to have 2 individual teams working on something? And when you do that, you've got to make a very deliberate decision about whether you're going to accept that overhead of into team communication, which actually is more of a burden than having everybody collaborating within the same team. And so there's a balance, I think. It's
that
not
assumption
easy.
that everybody needs to know what everybody else is doing. So within a single Scrum team, actually there isn't, that assumption does exist. We're all responsible for doing this together. Everything we do, we stand behind together. So we should have an awareness, and that's why the daily stand-up is really helpful. And you can hear something and say, oh, I would like to share some knowledge or contribute to that.
Yeah.
So that's fine, but sometimes we look at operational teams, for example, they tend to be much larger, don't they?
Yeah, and I do think it's a maturity thing as well. So I really like your Navy SEALs example, because they are probably very mature teams that stick together for a long time.
They're together for years, yeah.
And they've really developed that trust.
Yeah.
And I've seen amazing teams of 16 people, and I was going in there as an agile coach about to say, why have you got such a large team? But they were an operations team like you mentioned, and they were very efficient in how they operated, and it was useful to just work as one team.
Yeah.
And it's kind of understand that as teams get bigger, it's not a cliff edge. It's like, whoops,
No.
you've hit 12 people. That's it.
Oh, you've hit the magic number. Thou shalt split.
But in practice, you probably find those mature, large teams do tend to, a small number of individuals will self-organise around a problem as it comes in. And where I've seen that the daily stand-up for them work very effectively was a lot of work needed to be done by the team, and unfortunately, because of the way their work was structured, their teams were structured, a lot of it would be waiting on a supplier, or waiting on more information to come, or waiting for something to be available for them. So a lot of blocks work, essentially. So they would report by exception. It would just be still blocks. Okay, yeah, we're making progress on this. This is what we're actively working on. So they would use the board to guide their conversation. There was masses of work. They recognised that actually they just shouldn't talk about a lot of it. But the self-organisation allowed them to have those meetings and to collaborate effectively.
Yeah. Okay. Oh, that's good.
Yeah.
So effectively, they were small teams.
Yeah. And the other thing is, sometimes large teams are quite appropriate when you need a diverse set of skills to make one product, right? So if you look at most software stacks these days, highly complicated, right? So, a typical e-commerce environment, you'll have front end often in React or something quite specific like that. So you need somebody who can do JavaScript and React, and then you're going to need somebody who can actually, generally those people aren't the people who can do nice HTML as well, so you need design and you need some UX. Then you need somebody who's going to do some microservices, and then you need somebody who's going to do some back-end work on the e-commerce system. So you're starting to build, and we're not even mentioning the testers.
Gosh, wouldn't it be such... so actually we're making an assumption that we've already talked about in a previous section, which is you do need all of the different skills inside your team. So we're not talking about the web team and the JavaScript team. We're talking about the team that has all the skills within it.
And like, evidently we'd love people who are full stack, but I think there's people
knows everything.
I think there's people rare, especially in the age of specialization which we're in at the moment. When you look at DevOps tools, for example, highly specialist, and there's people who kind of like they're kind of continuous integration and infrastructure as code experts rather than tending to the actual business of writing functional code all the time, and that's important, and there's lots of specialities, and it gets even more specialized, especially when you start to introduce frameworks into the mix that are not just JavaScript. It's JavaScript and have to know more about this kind of massive framework we're integrating. So everything gets complicated. There's lots of specialisms. You need to get these guys to work all together on a team. Sometimes that team's going to get a bit bigger.
Yeah. Can a team ever be too small?
Team of two?
Well, they say that 7 plus or minus 2, or depending on where you read it. But what happens if you have a team of 2, 3?
We do what we can with the people we've got.
Right. So I look at it like this: teams own code, and if you want to get your team of 1 to own the code base, then you've got a problem. If you've got a team of 2, then it's probably still a bit of a problem. you need to add a few more people so that you've got that ability to have, the XP term, collective ownership. And
you look at why do you want a team in the first place, which is to provide some kind of longevity and resilience around what you're trying to do.
Yeah.
But
they're kind of run over by a bus.
But we
syndrome.
don't say,
yeah.
oh no, I've only got one person. Okay, we'll all stop now. But yeah, we should aspire to an appropriately resilient structure, I guess.
Yeah.
Yes.
Resilient structure, and it's the case of like if you want to actually do some good work, you want some different opinions in the room. So like a team of one or a team of two, you're going to have less divergence of opinion if you start growing that team a bit more, and you can generate some more ideas.
Yeah, so maybe resilience is my bottom bar, and then I build on that with an extra couple of people with better understanding, better products, better quality.
Yeah, I'm working with a guy that not working with. I've got a mate actually who's like he's the only person who knows a particular skill in the company he's working with, and
but he's expensive.
well, no, and he's thinking of leaving, right? So it's like I'm looking at that company. I'm thinking, oh, your company's in trouble. Then you're just going to be up shit creek without a paddle. So and that's a problem. If you're a company and you have a business critical operation and you've only got one person who can do it, then more the fool you.
Yeah.
Well, offline for a few months while it gets rewritten.
Yeah.
Do you know what the world carries on turning?
Indeed.
So I think if your organisation can only afford, two developers, two people to do the build, then you might have to have a small team.
You might.
But generally, if you're an organisation that's got more, it makes more sense to bundle those individuals working on multiple different things into a single team.
Mm-hmm.
I had a piece of reporting software recently that you know quite well. That was building agile metrics, but it was a very, very small team, and actually some of those individuals started to leave and go and do other things, and we were left with nobody. Where actually, if it was part of a larger team, and there was a group of 5, 6, 7 people maintaining a variety of metric reports, it would have been much, much easier to maintain that.
Much more expensive.
Would have been much cheaper.
Well, okay.
Because hopefully that team would have been able to maintain a bunch of things.
Yeah, and loss of knowledge, expensive stuff.
Oh,
that's true.
Yeah.
Yep.
So don't get me started. But that's
saved a rewrite. Yeah.
And don't forget the all-important cost of delay. If you're going to have nobody to add the value, then you've got to consider the economics of cost of delay.
It's so hard to look to the future and to really give that future cost proper weight, isn't it?
It is.
Yeah, and then there's overhead costs of teams as well. So, do you want a Scrum Master or a product owner to work with that team?
Oh, what? A Scrum Master for a team of 2?
Actually,
seriously,
let's,
4.
Even as an individual,
Yeah.
actually at that point, as an individual, I'm clearly not a team, but I'm doing something for someone. So there's my team. There's straight away a collaboration that is more than one person.
Yeah.
And I guess that person would sit within a marketing team or a wherever else team.
Maybe. But, it's like, it's truly about, so you could work as an individual in an organisation, right, and not really feel part of a team, but we're talking about organising as a team and having parts of the organisation that are team focused to deliver the value.
We have product implementation teams in our head, don't we? And I think 3 to 9, we're happy.
Yep. So to sum up,
it's helpful.
Small teams are good. Small teams are good because from a practical point of view, things like daily stand-up, they're shorter. You can actually get it done in 15 minutes rather than rambling on. We think from a social team interaction point of view, the smaller teams are better because you get a chance to build better team relationships and you understand the strengths and weaknesses of your current teammates. But we're also pragmatic, right? We don't feel like we should just set a rigorous, rigid sort of like, as soon as you get past 9, you've got to split into 2 teams, because we're practical as well. We're practical because actually you might have a diverse set of skills needed, and just to get testers, developers in all the different kind of languages and components that you need to put,
I guess
together.
We'd want to be looking to encourage collaborative behaviour where people are self-organising. Shared goal, trust, which is where you came in.
Yeah. And all
Sounds
good.
good.
And it's a wrap.
Perfect timing.